I was falsely accused at 18 by my golden brother and my boyfriend. So I got disowned by my family and left homeless. 6 years later, the truth finally came out, and I watched them lose everything. I don't even know where to start with this. I've been carrying this story for years, and I finally feel like I can tell it now that it's actually over. This is long, really long, but I need to get it all out. When I was 18, my golden child brother and his girlfriend, no, his ally, accused me of something I didn't do. My parents believed them without question, threw me out of the house with nothing, and told me never to come back. I lost my family, my home, and my entire life in one night. What followed was 6 years of hell, homelessness, false arrests, blackmail, and watching from the sidelines as they lived happily while I was erased. But karma works in mysterious ways, and the truth has a funny way of coming out when you least expect it. This is the story of how I went from sleeping behind a laundromat to watching my accusers face justice in court. It's messy, it's painful, but it ends the way it should have from the beginning. Here's what happened. My brother, Alex, 28, male, was the family's golden boy. He could literally commit arson, and my parents would still say he's just passionate. Meanwhile, if I, 18 female at the time, breathed too loud, I got a lecture about respect and responsibility. He was the kind of guy who talked big but never delivered, failed half his classes, quit every job he got, and somehow still managed to make it everyone else's fault. Mom said he was just finding himself. Dad said he's got charm. He'll land on his feet. Charm apparently covers everything. Lying, stealing, cheating. Once he borrowed my laptop and sold it to a friend for cash. When I told my parents, my mom literally said, "You should have been more careful where you leave your things." Like, sorry for existing in the same house as your delinquent son. I was used to being the side character in my own life, honestly, until David came back. His family had moved away when we were kids, but when they came back during our last year of high school, it was like something just clicked. I still remember seeing him for the first time again at the community park. He was wearing this yellow hoodie and laughing at something his friend said, and for some reason, I just froze. It's embarrassing, but I swear the world felt quieter for a second. We started talking again that week. He remembered little things about me, like how I used to hate peanut butter sandwiches, or how I couldn't swim properly. We'd walk home together, talk about random stuff like music, college plans, dumb memes. He'd draw tiny stars on my wrist when he was bored. For a while, everything felt good, like actually good. He made me feel seen in a house where I'd spent my whole life being invisible. Then came that night. There was this small house party. Not wild, just a bunch of mutual friends hanging out. David and I were fine, laughing, dancing a little. Alex showed up later, all loud and cocky as usual. I remember David going quiet when Alex walked in. I didn't think much of it. I should have. The next morning, Mom called me downstairs. Her voice was cold in that way where you just know you're about to get destroyed. When I came down, everyone was there. Dad sitting with his arms crossed. Mom standing like she was holding herself back. David crying on the couch. And Alex beside him with his stupid, fake, concerned look. "David told us what you did," Mom said. I froze. "What? What I did?" David looked at the floor. Alex stepped in, voice low but all dramatic. She was being inappropriate with him at the party. I saw it. I tried to stop her. I couldn't even speak for a second. I just stared at them both, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was a joke. Then Mom's face changed. She started yelling, "You disgust me. I can't believe I raised someone like you." I tried explaining, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept talking, saying things like, "You've always been jealous of your brother, and I should have seen the signs." Dad didn't say a word. He just stared at the floor like I wasn't worth looking at. When I tried to move closer, Mom stepped back and screamed, "Don't you dare touch me!" Then she started grabbing my stuff from the hallway. My jacket, shoes, random clothes. She opened the front door and threw them out onto the lawn one by one, yelling, "Get out! Get out of my house before I call the police." I just stood there watching my own life being tossed out like trash. My brother didn't say a word. David didn't even look at me. When I finally walked out, Mom slammed the door so hard it shook the porch. I could still hear her crying inside, saying, "Fomani, what did we do to deserve this?" I sat on the curb with a half-torn backpack, a few shirts, and the sound of my family comforting the people who'd just ruined me. That was the last time I saw that house. When they threw me out, I stood there for maybe 10 minutes just staring at the door, thinking someone, anyone, would open it and realize this was insane. But no one did. My clothes were scattered across the front yard like a yard sale nobody wanted to buy from. I remember my mom's voice still yelling from inside, "You stay away from us. Don't come back here." I tried calling her later that night, still thinking it was some misunderstanding. She didn't pick up. Then my dad texted me just one line, "Don't contact us again." I was 18. No money, no car, no backup plan. I went to a friend's place for a couple of days, but his parents got weird about me staying after they heard the rumors. Within a week, everyone knew. At one point, I actually thought about going back to the house and telling them they couldn't legally just throw me out like that. I Googled tenant laws for my state on my friend's cracked iPad. Something about needing a 30-day notice for eviction. So I called Alex thinking maybe, just maybe, he'd have an ounce of guilt left. He answered like he was doing me a favor. "You're not a tenant, sis. You're an accused criminal. You want to talk about eviction laws when you should be worrying about prison?" I hung up right there. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the phone. He knew exactly what he was doing, making sure I stayed scared and far away. I spent the next month basically homeless. Slept behind a 24-hour laundromat most nights because the dryers kept the air warm. Some nights I got lucky with couches or a motel if a friend lent me $20. I stopped checking social media because every post, every photo, every "we love you, Alex and David" made me feel like I was slowly disappearing. Then one day, this old man named Frank showed up. He owned the laundromat. I thought he was going to kick me out, but instead he just asked, "Kid, you hungry?" I said, "Yeah," and he bought me a sandwich. Then he told me he needed help around his house, fixing things, running errands, stuff like that. I moved in with him that week. He didn't ask questions. He didn't even ask my last name. He just said, "If you're going to stay here, you help out and you don't bring trouble." For the first time in months, I slept in a real bed. I didn't tell him anything about what happened. I couldn't. Every time I tried to talk about it, my chest tightened, like someone was squeezing the air out of me. I worked with him for a year, painting fences, mowing lawns, helping in his garage. It wasn't much, but it gave me something to do, some reason to get up. Then one night, I was scrolling through Facebook on an old phone Frank gave me. And there it was, David and Alex at an engagement party. David's hand on Alex's shoulder, grinning at the camera. The caption basically a wedding announcement for the two who had buried me. "Can't believe I get to marry my best friend." The comments? "Mom, so proud of you two. You've both come so far." Dad, "Two souls meant to find each other." Old friends, "Finally, you guys are perfect together." Even the family dogs account, yes, my mom made one, commented with hearts. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My throat went dry, and I swear I could feel my pulse in my ears. It wasn't even about David anymore. It was the fact that they were celebrating, happy, loved, and I was just gone. After that, I started shutting down completely. I barely talked to Frank. I didn't leave the house except for work. I just stayed quiet, convincing myself I could disappear if I stayed still enough. Frank isn't dumb. He saw the way I hovered near doors, how I checked the window any time a car slowed. He didn't push with big speeches. He made extra coffee in the morning, left it by the toolbox, and sat nearby, like a guard dog, pretending to nap. One night, he finally let it out. Not nosy, just steady, like someone tightening a loose bolt so it stops rattling. "Frank, kid, I know what happened." Me, "Nothing happened, I'm fine." Frank, "You say I'm fine, like a person holding a leaking pipe and calling it modern art." Me, "It's just stuff. I don't want to drag you into it." Frank, "You live here. That makes it my porch, my problem, and my business. Those people lied about you. I can see it on your face the way I see rust on a hinge." Me, "You don't know them." Frank, "I don't need to. I know you. You show up, you work, you tell the truth, even when it makes you look small. That's the whole measure." Me, "They're not done. He keeps trying to pull me under." Frank, "Then we make a plan that floats. You save every message. You don't answer bait. If someone knocks loud, I open the door with both eyes. And if you need a lawyer, we'll find one that eats paper for breakfast." Me, "Why are you helping me, Frank?" Frank, Because someone helped me once, and I didn't deserve it either. And because you're not what they said you are. I can tell. People who lie don't stack firewood straight. Me. That's a weird metric. Frank. It's the right one. Now eat something. You look like a coat hanger in a hoodie. Me. I'm not hungry. Frank. I didn't ask. I made stew. If you're going to fall apart, do it full. He slid a bowl in front of me, then set his old flip phone on the table. If he calls again, we log it. We don't fear it. I didn't say thanks. Didn't have to. He just nodded like he heard it anyway. That night, around 3 a.m., a number sent me a message saying, "If you don't pay for what happened to me, like actual money, you will see what happens. Officially, you know who this is." It was David. Immediately after, there was loud knocking at the door. Frank opened it, half asleep and confused. 2 officers stood outside, flashlights cutting through the dark. One of them looked right at me and said my full name. I didn't even need to ask. I already knew. "Ma'am," the taller one said, "we have a warrant for your arrest." They kept me in holding for 2 days. The room smelled like bleach and metal, and every sound echoed, keys jangling, doors slamming, my own heartbeat. They asked the same questions over and over, like if they asked one more time, I'd suddenly admit to something that never happened. On the 3rd morning, a detective came in with tired eyes and a file in his hand. He said there wasn't enough evidence, no witnesses, no physical proof, just the same recycled statement from a year ago. They let me go. No apology, no explanation, just handed me a bag with my stuff in it and said I was free to leave. I walked out into the sunlight, blinking, feeling like I'd stepped into a world that didn't want me anymore. I didn't even know where to go, so I just started walking. That night, I finally called my parents. Part of me still believed maybe now that the police had cleared me, they'd see how wrong they were. Mom picked up first. Her voice was cold. "What do you want?" I swallowed hard. "They dropped the charges. There wasn't any proof. You know that means—" She cut me off. "That doesn't mean anything. You think you can fool everyone, but we know what kind of person you are." "Mom, I didn't do anything," I said. "You threw me out for nothing. I didn't—" She raised her voice. "Don't lie to me. You think I forgot how Emily cried that night? How Alex couldn't sleep because of what you did? We protected her from you." Dad's voice came in from the background. "You're lucky you're not in prison. Don't call here again." The line went dead. I stood there holding the phone, feeling like my ribs were made of glass. Every word from them still echoed in my head hours later. A few days after that, I got a message. The name that popped up made me freeze. Emily. For a second, I thought maybe she was going to apologize or explain. Instead, the message read, "You owe me for what you did to my life. You don't know what your trauma did to me. Send $5,000 or I'll tell the police you tried to contact me and harass me again." I swear I felt my stomach drop. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Then she sent another. "You ruined my mental health. You think you get to move on while I suffer? Pay for what you did." I blocked her right then. That night, I sat on the porch steps outside Frank's house with my hands shaking, even though it wasn't cold. Frank opened the door behind me and stood there quietly for a second, like he was listening to the way the air moved. "That look on your face, he said, "that's a man with a snake under his porch." "I'm not a man," I said automatically, then laughed once without humor. "But yeah, there's a snake. We can smoke it out," he said, "but you stop feeding it." After that, I shut down again. I barely talked to Frank. I didn't leave the house except for work. I convinced myself I could disappear if I stayed still enough. Then summer came, and with it, the person who would change everything. His name was William. He was Frank's grandnephew, in town for a special project, tall and soft-voiced, with paint on his jeans, and a habit of humming when he thought no one was listening. He'd set up an easel in the backyard most afternoons, tilting canvases toward the light like he was coaxing the day to be kinder. He wasn't loud. He wasn't nosy. He was funny in that way that made silence feel ridiculous. He'd hand me a mug without asking how I took my coffee. He'd leave tiny doodles on sticky notes near the toolbox. Little boats, constellations, a crooked house with a chimney that always smoked. He'd ask me questions that weren't traps. "Do you think crows remember faces? What's your favorite street in this town and why?" Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I didn't. He never pushed. I didn't mean to fall for him. It just happened in the small moments. Him reaching for the heavy bag of concrete without making a show of it. Him noticing I flinched when a car idled too long outside and standing a little closer to the door after that. Him laughing at a stupid joke and then looking at me like laughing wasn't a betrayal of anything we'd lost. One evening, William found me on the back steps, staring at my phone like it might bite. He sat beside me without asking, forearms dusted with charcoal, the evening light turning the edges of his hair almost gold. "You look like you're carrying a piano," he said softly. "You can set it down here if you want." I didn't plan to talk, but the words came anyway. I told him everything, every ugly detail, the false accusation, the arrest, the blackmail, the way my family threw me away like I was garbage, how Emily had destroyed me and then still came back to squeeze me for money. When I was done, I couldn't even look at him. I waited for him to flinch or step back. Everyone always did, once they knew. He didn't. He just reached over and took my hand like it was the most normal thing in the world. "I believe you," he said, "and I'm sorry nobody else did." That was the first time I cried in front of anyone since the night my mom threw me out. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't completely alone. Things got better for a while. I stopped waiting for police sirens. I started sleeping again. I even told Frank the short version, just that I'd been lied about, but I was okay now. He didn't ask for details, just nodded and said, "Everyone's got ghosts. Yours can live in the attic. They don't get the good couch." Then, like she always did, Emily showed up again. A message popped up from an unknown number. "You owe me again. I'm still suffering. You wouldn't want people to hear about the kind of trauma you caused, right?" This time I didn't panic. I didn't even think twice. I typed back, "I'm done paying you. Leave me alone." She sent back a paragraph of threats. Police, court, ruining my life again. The usual poison. I blocked her without reading the rest. That night, though, I couldn't shake the fear. Every car that drove by made me flinch. I kept imagining sirens pulling up, cops shouting, everything repeating all over again. But morning came and nothing happened. No police, no calls, no messages. Days went by, then weeks. Silence. It was weird. Too quiet. I should have felt relieved, but something about it felt wrong. Emily wasn't the type to just stop. Then one night, there was knocking. Not angry or fast, just soft, uncertain. When I opened the door, Alex stood there. He looked terrible. Dark circles, messy hair, eyes red like he hadn't slept in days. For a second, I thought he was drunk, but he wasn't. He just looked broken. "What do you want? And how did you know where I live?" I asked, already annoyed. He said he got it from our old friend Joe, then swallowed hard. "It's Emily," he said. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. "Oh, let me guess. She's queen of the world now. Congrats to both of you. Really happy for the happy couple." He shook his head. "She's pregnant." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Wow, great news. You must be so proud." His face crumpled. "I'm not the father." I stopped. "What?" He started crying. Actual tears. I didn't even know he could cry. He said she'd been cheating on him for months, that he found out she'd been lying to him too. And then he said the words I never thought I'd hear from him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for everything. For what we did to you. For believing her. For ruining your life." The air felt heavy, like the whole world had gone quiet just to hear that sentence. I didn't say anything. I just watched my brother, the same guy who had destroyed me, fall apart on my doorstep, and all I could think was, now you finally know what it feels like to lose everything. Alex sat on the porch steps like he didn't know what to do with his hands. He'd wiped his face a dozen times, trying to pull himself together, but his voice still shook every time he opened his mouth. "I know you hate me," he said. "You should. I hate me too." "Good start," I said. I wasn't smiling. "You ruined my life, remember?" He nodded. "Yeah, and I can't fix that. He stopped, swallowing hard. "I can't carry it anymore. Nobody else knows. Not Mom, not Dad. They still think you're the monster and Emily's the poor victim." Hearing that almost made me laugh, but not the good kind of laugh. The kind that sounds like it's tearing something out of you. He rubbed his hands together. "She lied to me. I caught her sneaking around, acting weird, checking her phone in the middle of the night. I followed her once to this cafe. She was with some guy from her work. They were..." He couldn't even finish the sentence. "When I confronted her, she said the kid isn't mine, that it's his. And then she just smirked, like it was my fault for being too stupid to notice." "Congratulations," I said flatly. "You finally met the real Emily." He flinched. "I deserve that. I know I do." Then he looked up at me. eyes glassy. I was jealous of you, you know. Always have been. You were the one people liked without trying. The one David actually loved before we did all that. I thought if I took everything from you, I'd finally feel like you. Turns out I just ended up being empty. For a long minute, neither of us said anything. The night was so quiet you could hear crickets from the field. So what now? I asked. You came here to cry and hope I pat your back? He shook his head. No, I came because I need to make it right. At least once. He told me his plan. Half stupid, half desperate. Emily was having a baby shower the next weekend, full of family and friends. The whole neighborhood, probably. Alex wanted to expose her there in front of everyone. You're insane, I said. Maybe, he said, but you're the only person who has nothing left to lose and the only one who deserves to see her fall. I leaned back, watching him squirm. So what exactly are you thinking? He hesitated. She doesn't know I know about the coworker. I told her I forgave her, that we could move past it for the baby. She's playing along, but when the family's all gathered, I'm going to tell them everything. What she did, what she made me do, what we did to you. My chest tightened. You think they'll believe you? He shrugged. They'll have to. I'll bring proof, messages, photos. She confessed everything, thinking I'd protect her. I've got it all. I didn't say yes right away. I didn't trust him, not yet. But I wanted her lies gone. I wanted the people who threw me out to see her for who she was. So I agreed. The baby shower was in my parents' backyard. The same yard where, years ago, they'd thrown my shoes, my jacket, and my life into the grass before slamming the door in my face. Now it was all pastel balloons, white tents, and fake laughter. Tables covered in pink and gold decorations, a sign that said, "Welcome, baby Harper," painted in elegant cursive. Everyone was there. Mom, Dad, the neighbors, family friends, people who once whispered about me like I was a ghost story they wanted to believe. I stayed hidden at first, behind the tall hedge near the fence. I didn't even plan to go near the crowd. I just wanted to see. I wanted to witness her world crack the same way mine had. Emily floated from table to table, glowing in her expensive maternity dress, laughing that perfect laugh that used to fool everyone. She looked like she'd won, like none of it had ever happened. Then Alex stood up. He was holding a glass of champagne, his hand shaking just enough for me to notice. I need to say something, he said. The chatter died instantly. Mom smiled, expecting a toast. Dad leaned back, proud. Emily turned toward him, her hand resting on her stomach, eyes soft. But then she froze, because Alex's voice changed. This, he said, clearing his throat, this isn't my child. The silence was instant and suffocating. I already did a DNA test, he continued. Court chain of custody, her discarded coffee cup, my swab, accredited lab, 0% probability I'm the father. He pulled a folded envelope from his pocket and held it up. The room erupted into whispers. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Dad frowned, confused. Emily's face twisted like glass under pressure. You're lying, she hissed. You're insane. He didn't stop. She's been cheating for months. With her coworker Mark. I have the proof. Photos. Messages. Confessions. He turned to the guests, voice breaking. She lied to all of you, just like she lied about my sister. And then his finger pointed, straight at me. Dozens of heads turned. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as people realized I was there, half hidden by the hedge. Mom's voice cracked. Angeline? Emily spun, eyes wide, the mask she'd worn for years finally shattering. No, 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 this isn't... Alex cut her off. You ruined her life, Emily. You ruined my life. You made me destroy my own sister to protect your lie. Emily's voice rose into a shriek. You don't know what you're saying. You're trying to destroy me. But it was too late. Alex held up his phone and began reading her messages. Her words, her threats, her blackmail, her laughter. Every lie exposed under sunlight and wedding decor. Mom started sobbing, whispering, "What have we done?" over and over. Dad just stood there, pale, jaw tight. The kind of silence that looks like guilt finally breaking through. Emily reached for Alex's arm, pleading now. Please, stop. We can fix this. He stepped back, shaking his head. The only thing broken here is the truth. I stepped forward then, my legs heavy, my pulse hammering in my ears. The crowd parted like they'd seen a ghost. And maybe they had. Emily, I said quietly, you'll need to come to court tomorrow. Her face went white. What? She stammered. You know exactly what I mean. Her lips trembled. You can't do this to me." "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "You did this to yourself." Mom was crying openly now, clutching her chest. Dad still hadn't moved. Emily's gaze darted around wildly, like she was searching for someone to save her, but no one moved. For the first time in her life, no one believed her. I turned away before the tears came. I walked straight through the crowd, past the decorations, past the looks of pity and shock. The same street I'd walked down 6 years ago stretched out ahead of me, only this time, I wasn't the one leaving in shame. This time, the weight wasn't mine to carry. That night, I sat on the porch with William. The air was still, almost eerily calm. He wrapped his arm around me, thumb brushing the back of my hand. "It's over," he said softly. I nodded, but I didn't believe it yet. Not completely. "Alex did the right thing," he added. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just 6 years too late." He didn't argue. He just kissed my temple, like he knew there were no right words left to say. Around midnight, the pounding started. It wasn't a knock. It was rage in the shape of a fist. William and I exchanged a glance. He went still. "Stay here," I said, standing. When I opened the door, Emily was there. Her hair was wild, makeup smeared, eyes red like open wounds. She looked nothing like the girl who once smiled under soft lights. "You think this is funny?" she screamed, shoving past me. "You think you can ruin my life and walk away?" William stood from the couch, startled. "Who are you?" She turned to him, sneering. "Oh, you must be the new one. Does she tell you the truth, William? That she's a liar? That she hurt me? That she destroys people and plays the victim?" "Get out," I said, stepping between them. She kept shouting, her voice cracking. "She blackmailed me. She attacked me. You're living with a criminal." William's voice was calm but cold. "You need to leave. Now." Emily lunged toward him, grabbing at his arm. That's when I did the only thing I could. I called the police. They arrived fast, maybe faster than I expected. Blue and red lights painted the walls as Emily paced on the porch, ranting, pointing, crying. When the officers led her toward the car, she was still yelling, "You'll pay for this. You both will. I'll make sure of it." The officer didn't even look at her. "You can tell it to the judge tomorrow," he said. The next morning, I walked into the courtroom. The smell of old wood and paper hit me like déjà vu. It had been 6 years since I'd stood in a place like this. But this time, I wasn't the one on trial. Emily sat across from me, eyes hollow, lawyer whispering frantically in her ear. She looked smaller now, her arrogance replaced by panic. Then Alex walked in. He looked exhausted but steady. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he stood. His voice wavered at first, but he didn't stop. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "I want to confess." The room went completely still. He told them everything. How Emily had lied, how they'd both framed me 6 years ago, how he'd gone along with it to protect himself, to protect her. "I knew it was wrong," he said, voice cracking, "and I did it anyway. I ruined her life." The judge's face was unreadable. "And why tell the truth now?" "Because I can't live with it anymore," he said quietly. "She doesn't deserve the punishment I gave her. I do." Emily's lawyer tried to intervene, but the judge raised her hand. Emily shot to her feet. "He's lying. He's just doing this because I cheated, because I—" Alex turned to her, eyes calm, almost pitying. "You told me yourself, Emily. You said the baby isn't mine. I filed for divorce this morning." The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers. The judge's gavel cracked through it all. When order returned, the judge read the charges. "Emily Parker," she said, voice steady, "you are found guilty of defamation, perjury, and false accusation resulting in criminal damage to reputation." Emily's lawyer begged for leniency. The judge didn't flinch. "Given the harm caused," she said, "this court sentences you to 3 years in state prison." Alex was sentenced to 6 months for obstruction and false testimony. He didn't argue. He just nodded, eyes wet, whispering, "I deserve this." When it was over, Mom approached me in tears. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "I didn't know. I'll never forgive myself." Dad stood behind her, pale and silent, unable to meet my eyes. "I need time," I told them, and I walked away. Outside, the sun was bright. The air was clean. William met me on the courthouse steps, his hand finding mine. "You're free now," he said quietly. And for the first time since I was 18, I actually believed him. 2 years later, my life didn't look anything like the wreckage it once was. William and I got married in a small ceremony by the lake. No big crowd, no fake smiles, just peace. Frank was there, proud, in his best flannel. We moved to a quiet neighborhood where the mornings smelled like grass and the afternoons hummed with cicadas. William painted in the backyard. I started working with Frank fixing up old houses. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. When our daughter was born, I held her and thought, this is what home is supposed to feel like. No fear, no lies, just life moving forward. Sometimes my mom writes letters, says she wants to meet her granddaughter, says families should heal. Maybe one day, maybe not. Some scars don't vanish, they just stop bleeding. And some lives, like mine, finally start. When the fire dies down and there's no one left to hold the match. I didn't answer my mother's letters for months. I kept them in a drawer I never opened, the envelopes stacked like small white ghosts waiting to be forgiven. Every one of them said the same things. We were wrong. We miss you. Please let us see you and the baby. Sometimes I read the first line and stopped. Sometimes I couldn't even bring myself to look at the handwriting. William never pressured me to decide. He'd find me standing at the window, a letter still unopened in my hand, and he'd simply ask, "Do you want tea or quiet?" It was always enough. Our daughter, Nora, grew fast. By her first birthday, she was walking, stumbling across the living room floor with that stubborn determination I recognized too well. She had William's calm eyes and my habit of laughing too loud when something was really funny. When she called me Mama for the first time, it undid something I didn't know was still tied up inside me. We built routines. Mornings were pancakes and soft music. Afternoons were work. William sketching plans in his studio. Me balancing invoices for the home repair jobs Frank still sent my way. Evenings belonged to us. No more nightmares, no more phone calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Just Nora's giggles and the soft click of her music box as she fell asleep. For a long time, I thought that was it. That peace was the ending. But peace, I've learned, isn't an ending. It's the space where you start becoming who you were supposed to be before someone else decided for you. A year later, out of nowhere, I saw Alex again. It was at the farmer's market on a warm Sunday morning. William was picking apples with Nora on his shoulders when I heard my name. I turned, and there he was, thin, older, sober. His hair had gone gray at the edges. He wasn't the loud, invincible boy I remembered. He was just a man carrying a paper bag and a quiet kind of guilt that never really leaves. "I didn't think you'd ever want to see me," he said. "I didn't," I answered. My voice came out steadier than I expected. He nodded. "That's fair." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air smelled like bread and honey. The sounds of laughter from nearby stalls felt almost too normal for a conversation like this. "I'm working again," he said finally. "Construction. I finished the sentence, did rehab after. I'm clean. I'm trying." "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it, even if part of me still hated him. He looked past me at William and Nora. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "Looks like you." I waited, unsure if he was going to ruin it with an apology that came too late. But he didn't. He just took a deep breath. "I know I don't deserve anything from you. I just wanted to tell you, you were right about everything, and I'm sorry." It wasn't a grand apology. It didn't fix the years or the scars. But it was real. I nodded. "I hope you keep trying," I said. "That's the only thing that matters now." He smiled a little, tired but sincere. "You finally got your life back." I looked over at William and Nora, and for once I didn't feel anger when I looked at my brother. Just distance, like we were two people from different lifetimes. "Yeah," I said softly. "I did." Then I turned back to my family. When I looked again, Alex was gone. That night, I sat outside under the porch light, watching moths spiral toward the glow. William came out and handed me a mug of tea. "You saw him today," he said. It wasn't a question. "I did," I said. "He's different." "You're different too," he said, sitting beside me. "Stronger." I smiled faintly. "I still have nightmares sometimes, about the door slamming, about the police lights." "Nightmares aren't the same as fear," he said. "Fear keeps you from living. Nightmares just remind you that you survived." I looked at him for a long time before leaning against his shoulder. "You make everything sound simple." "It's not simple," he said, kissing my hair. "It's just honest." In early spring, I finally opened one of my mother's letters. It was dated months ago. Her handwriting trembled, a mix of shame and hope. "Angeline, I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that we believe you now. We saw what Alex's confession did to the news. We saw what the truth did to all of us. Your father and I are not the same people. We can't be. The house feels empty. I think it always was. We just filled it with pride instead of love. If you ever want to come home, the door is open." Home. The word sat heavy in my hands. That house wasn't home anymore. It hadn't been for years. I folded the letter, slid it back into its envelope, and tucked it into the drawer. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Because I already had a home. A few months later, William's paintings started selling. Small galleries at first, then a couple of big commissions. He used to joke that peace looked good on canvas. I'd tell him it looked even better on him. Sometimes Frank visited with his daughter, now older and full of stories about her own life. He'd sit on the porch and complain about how retirement was boring, then quietly fix the squeaky hinge on our front gate when he thought I wasn't looking. "You built something real," he said one afternoon, nodding at the house, at Nora chasing bubbles across the yard. "Not everyone gets a second life." "Guess you were right," I said, "about the porch being yours, about the people who lie not stacking firewood straight." He chuckled. "Told you, some truths don't need polish." One summer evening, I took Nora for a walk down the same street where I'd once stood with a torn backpack and nowhere to go. The houses were the same, the air smelled the same, but everything inside me was different. I stopped outside the old family home. The porch light was off, the curtains were drawn. For a moment I thought about knocking, about letting them see the woman I'd become. But then Nora tugged my hand and said, "Mama, come on." And that was enough. We walked away, her small hand gripping mine, our shadows stretching long behind us. When we got home, William was waiting on the porch with dinner cooling beside him. He smiled when he saw us. "Good walk?" "The best," I said. He pulled me in close, kissed my forehead. "You're quiet." "Just thinking," I said, "about how sometimes the same street can take you to two different lives." He nodded. "And you chose the right one." I looked at him, at the light in the window, at Nora giggling as she tried to open the door with both hands. "Yes," I whispered, "I did." Later that night, after we put Nora to bed, William and I sat outside with the baby monitor humming softly on the table. Fireflies blinked in the tall grass, and the world felt small enough to hold. "You ever think about the past?" he asked. "Sometimes," I said, "but not like before. It's not a wound anymore. It's a map. It shows me how far I've come." He smiled, brushing his thumb against my wedding ring. "That's what survival looks like." I leaned into him and whispered, "No, that's what freedom looks like." The crickets sang, the wind moved through the trees like a promise, and for the first time I believed the universe owed me nothing, because it had already given me everything I needed.